If we have a child that's 16 years old and they're using methamphetamine that's not going to school like they're supposed to, I'll point out to them that someone who's a high school dropout is 8 times more likely to end up in prison, or someone who's a high school dropout over their lifetime on average will make about $400,000 less than someone with a high school education. We just want them to know that there's a better path out there for them to take.
What is going on, guys? Welcome to Be Frank Podcast. My name is Yosuke Shingu. I'm the host of this show. Today we have a special guest, Judge Bob Hughey. Today we're going to talk about a lot about juvenile cases. He's a judge, so that he go through it. He's have done this job since 1990s to now, so he has a lot of experience, great heart, and if you guys are interested about becoming a judge too, then this will be a great episode for you guys. So welcome to Be Frank Podcast, Judge. Well, thanks for coming. I was wondering that, so whenever you started judge, right? And then what was what was the first day look like for you?
Even though I'd been in the courtroom an awful lot, it was still nervous taking that different role as a judge. The first few days, my bailiff set a really light docket, so I didn't have a whole lot of cases. Made it easier for me.
Yeah. So what was made you wanted to be judge? Did you grow up like you wanted to be a judge, or?
No, I wanted to be an attorney growing up, and I did practice law for 23 years before I became a judge. One of the judges in Canadian County started appointing me to represent children in divorce actions, and he's the one that got me interested in it. He talked to me about the fact that he liked my judgment, he liked the recommendations I made to him, and he's the one that talked to me about it and got me interested in it.
Awesome. So I was always curious about whenever I'm talking to a judge, right? So that's public people or colleague or whoever, a friend or whatever, do you prefer to be called, hey, Judge Hughey or Judge Bob, or just Bob, or
It's almost like Judge has become my first name. Everyone just calls me Judge. Here's the problem. I don't like friends to call me Bob around the courthouse because I don't want people to think that they're going to get special treatment. I worry about the other side where they're calling me by my first name, and I worry about the other side thinking they're not going to get a fair trial.
Right.
So I like to keep it a little bit more professional. If we're away from the courthouse, I don't care what they call me. They call me Bob or whatever.
Yeah, but they say, hey, yes, your honor, right?
Yes.
Why is that? Why can't they just say yes, sir, yes, yes, ma'am? Why is that? I was just always curious.
There's no requirement that they say yes, Your Honor. A lot of attorneys do that, but it's not required.
Yeah. What do you know? Why is that started?
No, but when I started practicing law, I did the same thing when I talked to judges.
Yeah, because I watched the TV show or something like that, Lawyer TV, and then they don't say Your Honor or whatever. They're judges you have to say it, all kind of stuff. Do you do that too?
No. As long as it's not disrespectful what they say, then I'm fine with it. I had a litigant who was not real happy with me, and he kept calling me the dishonorable Bob Hughey. I didn't like. I had to put a stop to that. But
wow, that's disrespectful for sure. So I do ask this question to every guest, and then to get to know them. 2019 is 5 years ago. What were you doing 5 years ago?
Same thing I'm doing now. I was a juvenile judge at that time.
At the Canadian County?
Yes, at the Children's Justice Center in Canadian County. So my life really hasn't changed all that much in the last 5 years.
So you haven't changed, but also you probably have learned the last 5 years and all that stuff, right?
One of the things we've seen over the last 5 years, because of the pandemic, the things have changed in that regard. we would almost never do a hearing where someone appeared over a video conferencing. Now, even after the pandemic, we still do that a lot. If people are having trouble getting to court, then we will let them appear over video. And that, again, that's something that in 2019 just didn't exist.
That's interesting. Well, if you can like tell yourself advice 5 years ago yourself, what advice would you give yourself?
Probably prepare for a pandemic. I mean, that completely changed what we were doing. The courts shut down completely for several weeks, and when we came back, it was a whole different world at that time.
Yeah.
And I don't think any of the courts were ready for it in the beginning.
Oh yeah, I bet. Like, was everybody can't come or?
Right, and people couldn't come. Even after the restrictions began to be lifted and we could have court, it just seemed like cases kept getting put off time and time again because one party or the other, or one attorney or the other, would have COVID, and it caused cases to get put off. And the old saying, "Justice delayed is justice denied," and cases really were delayed tremendously for a couple of years. And then what had happened after the pandemic, after fewer people had COVID, our court system really got backed up because all of those cases that got put off, everyone was wanting to have them heard at the same time.
Yeah. Well, on the YouTube, they don't like the word C word. That I'm gonna cut it this one, but if we say on the COVID on YouTube, they like demonetize us, which is crazy to me. But
okay,
it's kind of interesting why they do that. But I was curious, like once the pandemic happened, is that in the juvie, do they have to follow like a 6 feet stuff, or like I guess what I'm trying to ask is like I guess like I never been in juvie, so like do they sleep together in the dorm room? How's that work?
So at our facility, there's two different things there. One of them is detention, which is kind of like a jail for juveniles. We only have one juvenile per cell or per bed, and so they're naturally distancing anyway. That's just the way it works. But during the pandemic, there were a lot fewer kids put in detention, and just made it easier. When they eat meals, they would usually sit right next to each other, and with fewer people, it made it easier to have them spread out and distance themselves from one another. The other aspect that we have at our facility is we have a residential drug and alcohol treatment program. What we did is we gave the parents the option, do you want the child to stay here during the pandemic, or do you want them to go home? And it ended up that all of them wanted their child to go home during the pandemic and not stay in treatment. And so we just shut down our residential treatment program at that time. We also have a school there, and we, for a while, went to distant learning. And when we opened back up immediately after the pandemic, we had fewer students there, again, to allow for social distancing.
Huh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, I asked about the 5 years ago,
Yes.
but how do you see yourself in 5 years from now?
Probably right where I am today, still doing juvenile cases. I'm getting a few years older, but I'm not ready to retire, and so I plan to still be working in 5 years and still doing what I'm doing.
That's awesome. So, like, I guess, like a judge, being a professional judge, I think that, from like a regular person like me, just imagine you go to court and then look out the file, judge or whatever. Like, can you kind of tell us, like, what your day-to-day life look like as a judge?
Yeah. We have probably about 60% of our work days, we have full dockets. One day a week, we have delinquent cases. It's all day delinquent. And, we may have as many as 40 or 50 cases in one day.
Wow.
Usually it's not quite that heavy, though. So it's just one case right after another. With the child welfare cases, we have 2 days a week with those cases. And there's a lot more issues, a lot more people involved in a child welfare case. We don't try to put near that many on their dockets. It's closer to about 30 a day. And, just go through those cases and hear from all the parties and make the decisions that we believe is best.
So you have the multiple different cases in a day. Do you look at a paperwork and stuff beforehand, or do you just on the day you listen to different attorney or people and then make a decision? Or
No, with the child welfare cases, the deprived kids, those kids who have been abused and neglected, DHS, the Department of Human Services, will write a report, and we read those beforehand. There can also be a report from CASA if they're involved in the case. Therapists will write reports. If there's a Native American tribe involved, many times they'll write a report. And so all of that's read beforehand. And usually I try to get mine read a couple of days before, so if I have any questions that we need to address before court, I can get it done. With the kids on probation, those who have committed crimes, we get a report either from the Juvenile Bureau or from the Office of Juvenile Affairs, depending on who's supervising that child on probation. And again, we read those beforehand.
Gotcha.
I also do guardianships and adoptions, and I'll spend a few hours. Again, I try to do it a couple of days before the hearing, just looking through the file and make sure I'm ready. I think that by being prepared, that helps the hearings go a little bit quicker, and I think I make better decisions when I'm fully informed of all the facts of the case.
So how often that, when you're looking at the files and reading through those cases, and then do you have a prejudgment? And then when you have a hearing, is there how often it flips your initial judgment, I guess?
Usually I have what I think I'm going to do just based on the reports, but there are times, especially I really don't get a report from the parents or their attorneys, and so they may have some information that causes me to completely change. For example, DHS may in their report say that the parents haven't worked any services to regain custody of their child. Well, the parent's attorney may come in and say, well, here's some certificates of what they've done. Parents may not have reported everything to DHS, so they didn't know to include it in their report.
Right.
And so there can be additional information coming in court.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and everyone's given an opportunity to provide whatever information they have.
Is there any kind of example you think of that was like a story or something about the child welfare case or whatever?
You caught me off guard. I can't think of anything right now. The one we probably hear that most of us, what I just said, are those where parents come in and they have done something positive for them that didn't get into the DHS report.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And then I guess whenever you're saying that you practiced law for a long time,
yes,
and then you became a judge, and then did you practice law in the juvenile?
So starting out, I didn't, but after it wasn't very long. I practiced law for about 5 or 6 years, and then Judge Miller, who was my predecessor, he was the juvenile judge before me. He started asking me if he could appoint me in some of these cases, and I started off being appointed to represent parents in child welfare cases, and then after was in 2001, I'd been representing parents for several years. 2001, I contracted with the Canadian County court fund to represent children in child welfare cases, and I did that until I became a judge.
Got you. So like, whenever you're, I guess like you were recommended from people to do that, like a judge for the juvenile cases. But like, what is like a most like a rewarding for you whenever you're doing your job?
With juvenile cases, you feel like you really can make a difference. You know, a lot of times with the adult cases, like in a criminal case, you can, the attorney is going to try to minimize the punishment that their client gets. But in juvenile cases, it's about providing services and helping them correct the conditions that cause them to commit a delinquent act or a criminal act in the first place, and being able to connect with some of these young people. That's probably my favorite thing.
That is awesome. I think that whenever you're working with children, I mean, you have to give them like, is that called sentences?
Yes, what we really call them rules of probation, right. But yeah, it's similar to the adult sentencing.
Then like, do you usually give them like a life advice every time you do that?
I try to, especially some of them, you feel like they've gotten into so much trouble you're not going to reach them. Yeah. But some of the younger ones, or first time they get into trouble, you feel like maybe you can help them, and I'll ask them questions about where do you see yourself in 5 years, like you just asked me, because I want them to think about that. Or someone who's 16 years old and they're using methamphetamine. Where are you going to go from there? I mean, what are you going to do? This needs to be, you bottomed out now, and right. We talk about that. Or if we have a child that's not going to school like they're supposed to, I'll point out to them that someone who's a high school dropout is 8 times more likely to end up in prison, or someone who's a high school dropout over their lifetime, on average, will make about $400,000 less than someone with a high school education. And try to help them understand that we're not trying to be mean. We're not doing this because we enjoy locking them up, or we enjoy getting onto them. But we just want them to know that there's a better path out there for them to take.
So. Why do you think that, what's the number one cause of like people use drugs or commit crime for juvenile?
I think one of the problem is with as people grow up, your brain's not fully developed until about the age of 25 or 26. And I think you can make bad decisions, until you're fully developed. I think also peer pressure. Everyone wants to fit in. Everyone wants to have friends, and if someone else is doing that, they're gonna join in. Whether it's using drugs or breaking into cars or whatever. I think also in our county, it seems to be there's a wide range of the economic status of these people. We have a lot of people that come from families with a lot of money, but we also have some that don't have anything. And I think that, when everyone else has a nice phone or nice shoes or something else, it's you got to steal, you got to do something so you can keep up with those people.
Right, so that they don't feel like, but so you see like rich parents, kids go to juvenile in some cases.
Yeah, what we see is there's a big difference a lot of times in the family support, and that can change the outcome of a case. But I have seen people, of various races, of various genders, various economic status. Anyone can commit a crime or commit a delinquent act.
Right. That makes sense. Do you think that what what would you say to those people? Like sometime I had the guests here, and then they have been to jail one time or whatever, and then they turn around their stuff, then they have a family, they have a business, they're successful, all that kind of stuff, and then other people like came in, and then they had to do certain things or whatever, and then it's a community they can get out or whatever. So what would you say to those kids in that situation where you say like a peer pressure, right?
Yes.
But they are born with that low income level family or whatever, and then everybody's doing that. What do you think that they can what action they have to take to get out of that situation so that they don't have to see you? I mean, essentially, right?
Well, I think there's a couple of things there. Personally, I would like if people weren't as materialistic as they are. Don't worry about those things. But also, we stress to these young people, get your education where you can get a good job, where you can support yourself, where you can buy some of those things. And if that's what you choose to do, I think education is critical. Getting some job skills is critical.
So that staying in school is, do you think, the number one thing to getting those people out of situation?
I think that's really important. Yes, yeah, it's not just getting that high school diploma, which I think is important, but it's also finding your niche of what you want to do where you can earn a living, regardless of what that is.
Yeah, I was curious what your thoughts on it, because to be able to become a lawyer or judge, you have to go to school, right?
Right.
And then, but it takes so much resources to go to those schools, right? Like to pay for it and all that stuff. And then people who are in that realm of community, then do you think that get a high school diploma, but also do you think they should a kind of education system is kind of changing, right? People don't have to go to college, but they can get an internship or start a business or whatever to make a living. But people still go to college to get education. But what do you think? Or they can go both, right? But what do you think that is there just it depends on people, or do you think that certain direction you see those people every day, right? So what do you suggest?
Yeah, a couple of things there. One of the things we do with our delinquents is we brought in speakers to talk about professions, and it's professions that you don't have to have a college degree. And I'll tell you how that got started. We have this residential drug treatment program, and sometimes I'd go down and have lunch with the kids there, and I'd just sit and talk to them. And one of them, I asked this young man, like I said earlier, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And he told me, I don't even remember what the profession was, but I said, well, what does it take to do that job? What does it take? Do you have to have a certificate? Do you have to have, and he said, you know what, I really don't know. And so I challenged him to go and research it, find out what you have to do. Don't just have this as a dream out there. Do something towards achieving that dream, and at least go out and research and see what it takes to get in that career. Well, after that, we started having these speakers come in, and we had an electrician, we had a hairdresser, different professions. We had a cook just come in and talk to these people about how you get started in these various careers, and so that they have a goal, they have a way to get to whatever career they want to get into. The other thing, and you, as you're asking your question, I was thinking I was going to talk about the VOTEC system,
right.
and you mentioned that. I have 5 kids. One has a doctorate, one has a master's, 2 have bachelor's degrees. My youngest son has a 2-year college degree, but he went through the VOTEC and took classes on being an electrician, and he's out making good money now. All of that training he got in the VOTEC system, just putting that much further along. You have to work so many hours before you can take the test to be licensed. Yes, yeah. And all of those hours in the classroom counted towards that.
Yeah.
And it really jump-started his career as an electrician.
That is awesome. I think like a lot of people, it just depends on what they want to do. If they stick to it and they go for it. I was curious, like, I thought that was interesting what you said about people are too materialistic.
Yes.
Is that things that you realize whenever you're judging people, like every day, and is that like a common, like a problem people have, or like is there anything that they drop out the school, or they're too materialistic, or they just don't have a parents' like a care, like what you see them like a common, I guess, factor that they are in front of you?
I think all of the things you just said, some of them don't have parents that are giving them the proper care and guardianship and guidance to get where they need to be. Some of them, they want the materialistic things. I think it's a combination of several things in there.
Got you. And then I know that Oklahoma has like a bunch of like methamphetamine going on,
Yes.
but like how like why is that, do you think?
Well, the other drug that's becoming a real problem is fentanyl, and both of them are extremely dangerous. But it's not just Oklahoma. That's a nationwide problem, and not just my county, not just my state, but this entire country has a problem with substance abuse. Society has a problem with substance abuse, and I'm not sure why that is. I've never even tried an illegal substance like that. I'm probably addicted to chocolate or soft drinks or something else, but never have tried that. But the problem is drugs like methamphetamine and fentanyl are so addictive. One use and you could be addicted to them. And I don't think people understand that, just how addictive they are. I have never understood I have never understood using substances like methamphetamine. I just don't get it.
Like when you say 15-year-old using meth, right?
Yes.
Where they go from there, right?
Yes.
Where they go from there?
Well, and we hope we can get them clean and sober and get them back on the right path.
Yeah.
That's our goal. I do want to tell you about one young man we had in our drug treatment program. He was a high school dropout, using drugs in high school. Nothing was going right for him at the time. He ended up getting into our drug treatment program.
A rehab?
Rehab.
Yeah.
He got clean and sober. He also studied for the GED, and while he was in treatment, this was a residential program. People come and live there. While he was doing that, he took and passed the GED exam, and he ended up going to college. He ended up becoming a doctor. And I keep thinking, from his parents' perspective, what that must have been like. Their son went from a high school dropout to being a doctor, and it's because we were able to get him clean and sober.
That is awesome. Mm-hmm. Why do you think he was able to do it?
He was a really brilliant. He was really smart. After he was able to get away from his addiction, there was no limits on what he could accomplish.
That makes sense. I mean, it takes more, right, to get away with it than like start it.
Yes.
I used to smoke cigarette, and it's just hard to quit. But once you quit, good, you know.
Yeah.
But I was thinking that I was wondering because of law in the United States, and then versus like a different country has a different laws, right? Like for me, uh, like drinking and driving, honestly, that I'm from Japan, so if I commit drinking or drive in Japan, your life is pretty much over because of how strict Japanese laws against the drinking and driving is that you will probably not never get a job ever again, and then I mean people will like hit you for like judge you for like a rest of your life, so that in Japan if they drink even one sip of drink they will my friends or whatever in Japan like they will get on the cab, they will never drive, and they don't even drive to come to the meetup or whatever, the party. Like that's normal, very normal. It's very stricted. But here, like I see so many people have DUI, and then like, people get a job and people you work and then you work in daily life, right? So I think that itself is changing. Like I guess like defines it. Is that do you think that's more like culture thing? It's a law thing, or like what do you think of that?
I think that's first very interesting, and how great is that in your home country where you don't let friends drink and drive. I know the United States went through that. That was the slogan they were using. Friends don't let friends drink and drive, and how important that is. How many lives could be saved? How much turmoil could be saved if everyone did that? And instead, here it seems like it's kind of the opposite. Everyone gets a laugh when someone gets in their car, gets behind the wheel when they're intoxicated or high, and that's just dangerous. There was this case in my county where a lady never had a criminal charge at all, had a wreck. She had been drinking. Someone died in that wreck. And she ended up being sentenced to 25 years in prison. And, she went from a normal, productive member of society, and that one mistake, and she went to prison for 25 years. And just how your life can change. Even a good person who makes that critical mistake, it can destroy their life.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, people get that sentence and they still do,
Yeah.
to do that. So, I mean, I think that I don't know, like it just kind of like it was kind of culture shock to me whenever come, and then like, but I think it's a opposite of side of things of like sexual harassment stuff in Japan, like a very not naive is not the good word, maybe like they don't really punish it that much. So but here it does. So like it's opposite side of things.
I've been working long enough. I have seen a change in that environment, and I think it's absolutely a positive change, where you just don't see inappropriate jokes in workplace and things like that, like you did, in 1985 when I first graduated from law school. That has changed, and it needed to.
Yeah, and then I think the things change, and then like what comedian can say or not say, right? And then I think that, and then like so like if somebody like maybe like you saying like that, the people who went through the rehab and become a doctor, and then people like go to medical school, whatever, but what is the process of become a judge? Like when kids like one day wake up, say I want to be a judge. Like what it takes to become a judge?
Okay, there's different levels of trial judges. There's district judges, at least in Oklahoma, district judges, associate district judges, and special judges. The special judges are appointed by the district judges in that county. It's not an election. They're just appointed by the district judges. The district judges and the associate district judges are elected positions. Every 4 years, we have to run for reelection. When I first became a judge, the judge who had this seat before me retired halfway through the term, and Oklahoma has a procedure where you can apply. The state has the OSBI do background checks and all of that, and then there's a judicial nominating commission that will pick 3 people of those who have applied and send those 3 names to the governor, and then the governor appoints. And that's what I went through when I first became a judge. So the governor appointed me.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, they have to go to law school, right?
Yes. You're going to have a college degree and a law school degree before you can become a judge.
And then you have to be a lawyer before you become a judge?
Yes.
Yes. Is there like a period?
For certain judges, it's 2 years. For others, there's not.
Got you.
So
like, by you're doing judge, and then you were a lawyer, attorney before, like, what's the like pros and cons? Did you like being a lawyer before, or?
I really didn't. And in fact, at one time, I remember driving to a college to get information. I was thinking about going back to school to become a teacher. I was going to go back and teach high school and see about coaching high school sports. I never did that. It just seemed to me what I didn't like about being an attorney, especially an attorney dealing with juvenile law and family law and those sort of things, is that you have these emergencies pop up. You get pulled 100 different directions all the time, and it just seemed like the pressure was always really, really high. I probably also didn't do a very good job of collecting fees. I understood that my clients were, many of them were, in a divorce, you have, these husband and wife usually, or both of them are working, and it takes all of that income to pay all the bills. Well, now they're trying to live separately, and they have 2 households, and there's just not enough money to go around.
Right.
And so I probably didn't do a good job making money at it. But as a judge, at least you have more control over your docket. You don't feel like you're pulled 100 different ways. The one thing that I don't really like about juvenile cases is that there are the emergencies. So I may have a trial set, a non-jury trial that's going to last all day, and then we have some emergency that pops up when I have to deal with it right there, and it kind of interferes with what we've had planned.
So do you usually like make your own schedule, kind of?
Yes. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And then like, is that determined by, I can handle this many cases, or
That's
something
right.
like that?
Yes. Yeah. We were talking earlier about I have the days for the delinquent cases, days for child welfare cases. Then there's a couple of days a week where I can do non-jury trials, and then one day a month we get away from that schedule and do jury trials. That's the only thing I don't really have a lot of control over, because all the judges have to do their jury trials the same week, because they will call in panels of jurors.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And then, like you're mentioning about you didn't like being a lawyer or whatever.
Right.
I think that's interesting. And then honestly, like people who want to become a lawyer probably talk to the other lawyer, or maybe watch movies or something, or TV show. They wanted to become a lawyer, and it's a good career. And then they go to college for 4 years and go to law school for, I don't know how many.
Three more.
3 more years.
Yeah.
And then they have kind of committed their young adult life to become one profession, right?
Right.
And after become a lawyer, that's like pretty much their life, right?
Yes, generally, but you have a lot of people that will get a law degree that never practice law. Some of them do it because they're going to go into business, and they figure having that law degree and knowing, the elements of a contract or an agreement, knowing some of those things will help them in the business world. So some of them never practice law, even though they have a college degree.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
How many percentage do you think they don't?
Man, I have no idea.
Got
I have
you.
no idea.
Because where I was going with it is they do that. They go take their time and it takes so much money to go there, right? And then, but like, I don't want people to like, if they're like high school kids or, kids listening to this, then I don't want them to like go there and then like 7 years later just quit or whatever, right? But anyways, what kind of person fits to become a lawyer, or what kind of person you will recommend to become a judge, or what kind of people do you recommend to practice law?
On practicing law, I think probably the most important thing is a passion for helping people, passion for seeing that justice is served. If you have an attorney that is not zealously and passionately representing you, you're probably not going to be happy, and he or she's probably not going to do the best job if they're not passionate about that. I think with regard to being a judge, I think you have to be willing to listen to all the evidence. You have to be patient, and we were talking earlier about making it a decision or having in your mind what you think you're going to do. You can't be stubborn about that and say, well, I'm not going to change my mind on this.
Right.
If the evidence is such that you should change your mind, then change your mind. You can't get locked in to one feeling or one ruling and decide I'm just going to carry it out, even though it may not have been the best decision. That's one of the things with juvenile cases is that generally we have a chance to fix things. In child welfare cases, for example, where kids have been placed in foster care, we'll have a review about every 2 or 3 months, usually 90 days reviews. And maybe a case is headed towards termination of the parent's parental rights. And my rulings are kind of reflecting that also. Parents aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing, and so we're kind of getting ready for a termination trial. But let's say the parents then decide, I've got to do something here. They get into whatever treatment they're supposed to be getting into. You as the judge have to recognize that, and even though you were making rulings, or even at the beginning of the case, I'll make a ruling to pick that child up and put the child in foster care, and and I think people involved in a child welfare case for the first time don't understand that. The district attorney at the beginning is asking that the child be placed in foster care. Many times the child's attorney will be asking for the same thing. The judge, rules on that. But if you make the progress you're supposed to make, everyone's going to change and be on your side. Everyone's wanting to do what's in the best interest of that child. And generally speaking, we all want that child to go home. Now, we may disagree when it's safe for the child to go home, but that's what we want. But you have people who are in the beginning are fighting to have a child removed from parents, and as the case goes on and the parents make progress, those same people are now fighting to get that child to go back with the parents. And and I think the judge has to have that attitude also. You have to recognize the progress that's being made.
That makes sense. I mean, from what I'm understanding, what you said, it's kind of like sometimes it's like a nuanced thing of what family is trying to do, or parents is trying to do. It's not like a black and white kind of situation you can make a judgment on. What do you do? You just try to look at a fact of like, if you see in the parents' eye of like they're actually trying and then like you feel it, right? Is that a feeling part of like, okay, they're gonna do this, I want to trust this parent or whatever? Is that like a big part of it for your judgment call too?
Yeah, you also have to take into account the child. If a child desperately wants to be back with that parent, you may give the parent a little bit more time. If we have a lot of cases where a child gets away from the parent and they realize the kind of hell they were living in, and now they're with a foster family and it's a normal family. And maybe that child is having a really, really hard time forgiving the parents for what occurred, when they were living with the parent. And so you have to take into account the child's time frame as well. In these cases, you have the state's right and duty to protect children. You have the parent's right to custody and control of their child. You have the child's right to live without being abused and neglected. And then in some cases, we have the Native American tribe who has a right to protect their culture and their heritage and get involved in the case. And so the decisions in these cases have to balance all of those rights to do what's best.
Man, how do you do it?
Well, again, I've been doing these cases some capacity or another since the early 90s. And so, just listen to everything and try to do what's best for everyone.
What's the biggest change since the 1990s to now?
With the parents, with the families,
Well, anything like you've been doing this and then for a long time, and then I'm pretty sure you see similarity of this is always being always this way. But did parents changed over the years?
I see this more in the delinquent cases. I think the parents, there's a lot of parents out there that want to be friends with their kids, or they don't want to parent the child anyway.
So
either they ignore the child or they want to be friends with them. They don't want to hold them accountable. Part of being a parent is punish the child. Yes, yeah, and some of them don't want to do that. Now, listen, I'm not saying that about every parent. There's lots of good parents that do everything right, and the child still gets into trouble. We all know that. But there seems to be a much higher percentage now where the parent almost wants to wash their hands of problems.
So that's the biggest difference you see.
Yeah,
that makes sense. I always wanted to ask Judge that you've been doing for like a long time. How can you tell people are lying?
Sometimes you can't. There's been times when I believe people, and then it comes out later that they were lying. You look at their demeanor, you look at how consistent their story is, you look at how consistent their story is with these stories from other witnesses, and you just have to make that call.
Yeah. So there's like I've been doing this so I can tell they're lying because I'm a judge. Yeah. Like, do you have that kind of stuff? Or?
No, not really. I mean, sometimes you get this gut feeling, and again, there's two different times. If you have a trial, you're going to listen to the evidence and make a decision. You're going to have to make that determination as to whether or not you believe that witness or not. But sometimes in our review hearings, like on a child welfare case, we come back every 90 days, as I said a second ago. And maybe I give a parent the benefit of the doubt. Maybe they're telling me something and I'm thinking, I don't know that I believe that. But it's not like a trial. I don't have to make that determination right this minute. Let's give the parent the benefit of the doubt. Let them, if they say that they're getting into drug treatment now, even though they've told us that before, they really didn't get into. Let's see what happens, and we'll take it up again at the next hearing and see if they followed up like they said they were going to, or something like that.
Yeah, and then also like you deal with so many parents too, right?
Yes.
So what if like parents is struggling right now of like maybe if you're the parents is like I've heard it multiple times, like if they're parenting kids and then hey, if you go this route you're gonna end up in jail, right?
Yes.
And then but like they feel like a powerless or whatever, and then they they don't know what they're doing or what they have to do. Those parents, what can they do, or what advice would you give to those parents that, like with kids is going that way?
It's okay to reach out for help.
But how do you seek out the help? Do they call you, or do
Yes.
they? Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
And one of the things I tell the people at the Children's Justice Center where I work, we have a lot of services we offer families. And, one of the good things about ours is there's no charge for anything. If you're a resident in our county, you can participate in services for free. But if someone calls, and for example, we do not have an anger management program, and someone calls and says, hey, we've got to get my son into an anger management program, we're going to find one for them. We're going to make that referral. We're not going to just say, sorry, we don't have that program for you. We're going to help them track down a program. And, we have a list of all the service providers in our county and some in adjacent counties to just help the family whatever we can to get services to them. I will tell you one other thing that we do that most other counties don't, again, because we have some services that other counties don't, some resources. If a child is out of control, and I'm not talking about doesn't take out the trash or, something like that. If they're really out of control, maybe sneaking out every night, using drugs, et cetera, even if they don't have a delinquent case, they can be placed on probation on what's called a parent referral. Parents can come down, fill out an application, and say, here's what the child's doing, and if it's bad enough, then a case can be filed, and the child will be placed on probation, just like if they had committed a crime. And so we can help the parents in that regard also. I'd rather see the child helped through services, but if we have to file a case to force that child into services, then that's what we'll do.
So, if the parents file those pre-crime charges, what's the benefit of that?
To the parent?
Or to the kid, too?
Well, a lot of the kids come kicking and screaming into those. They don't want a case filed, but it's a mechanism where we can force them to participate in services. They can be held in contempt if they violate a court order, and we can lock them up in detention based on that contempt. So it's going to help the child in the long run. A lot of times when we see those, it's due to substance abuse issues, and we will order them into treatment and help to get them clean and sober.
That makes sense. I mean, I was thinking about if your parents and if your kid, then if my parents put me to that pre-crime service, I'm like, I will hate my parents or whatever.
Yeah.
But if they get cleaned up, they might thank them. Is that the kind of...
Yeah, and here's the thing. You're still living at home. It's not like you're going off to a facility someplace or anything. You're still living at home, but you're going to have rules that you're going to have to answer to a judge rather than just your parents.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So they get held accountable if they can't make their kids hold accountable.
Yes. And, usually on those cases, when that happens, we put the child, the juvenile, on rules of probation. We also have rules of probation for the parents. And, some of it may be as simple as report violations of the child, but it could also be, Mom and Dad, we want you to go to a parenting class, or we want you to go to this program or that program to help you be a better parent.
Huh. That totally makes sense. I mean, you have 5 children.
Yes.
What do you think that best advice to be a good dad?
Be part of their life. Again, don't let their friends or anything else completely push you out of their life. You need to be part of it. Go to their events. Just, be there for them.
That's awesome. I'm pretty sure you're a great dad. And then I grew up and then I had my dad, but he was not really involved.
Yeah.
So that me and him doesn't really have a good relationship. I went back to Japan like a couple months ago. That was 11 years. I haven't seen him in 12 years, and I haven't talked to him for 12 years. So it was kind of reconnecting, but it was kind of weird. And then we're working through that. But I think that's totally makes sense that, if I have a kid, I will totally to be involved and all that stuff. I think that's a good advice.
Yeah, my youngest child right now is 22 years old. They're all adults. But if we pull out my phone right now and look at recent calls, most of them are going to be family calls, either my wife or my kids, and we stay in contact. I have one son that lives about an hour away from his job. He lives in Texas, but he lives about an hour away from his job, and he calls me every morning as he's driving to work. And usually I don't have time to talk the whole time, but we at least talk for a little while. And it's kind of that way with all of my kids. We spend as much time together as we can. Have all of them over for Sunday dinner every week, and all
That's
of that.
awesome. Mm-hmm. That's a beautiful thing to have. I mean, if you go back to your let's say 16, would you be a judge again?
Yes, I would strive to be a judge again. Things had to fall into place for me, but yeah, I would strive to be a judge again. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. That is, I think, the best career to have, to no regrets and all that stuff.
And if I knew the way things were going to work out and I was going to become a judge, I would have never looked at leaving the practice of law. It's just completely different. I walk into work now in the morning, and I'm happy to be there, and I feel like I can make a difference in the life of the not only the juveniles that come into my court, but also the parents. And I think I'm got the perfect situation. It's not. There's a lot of people out there that never want to do a juvenile case, either as a judge or a lawyer. But I found my little niche, and I'm happy with it.
That's awesome. I mean, first time I met you, before I met you, I had a kind of the idea of okay, I'm meeting a judge today. Yeah. And then you're very kind, and then I think that you care about people. And then that talking to you today too, I think that you're great at your job and you're a great dad. And then I thought it's very, very honored to meet you. And then I thought I learned a lot of things today that I didn't know about. Yeah. I should probably study a little bit more about Judge. But I was wondering that is there anything else you would like to share, or?
Well, we all know, our children are important, and we need to do what we can to start them out right, and whether that's schooling and we talked about previously, you and I talked about the truancy program that we have in Canadian County. School's important. Getting kids, keeping kids safe is important, and I truly do believe that, and I believe protecting children it's just better for everyone. It's better for society. It's not just that kid we're helping; it's society we're helping when we do that.
That's awesome. How can they reach out to you or reach out to Canadian County Justice Center? Is that through a website or?
Website, or if someone needed a service or something, they could call up to the Children's Justice Center. We're always willing to help. And like I said, if we don't have a service that you need, we will do our best to find one for you. Perfect.
If you guys are listening to this podcast on the YouTube, I will put the link in the below, the Canadian County Justice Center link below and the phone number. And then if you guys are, I would like to know what you guys thought about this podcast. And if you guys are listening on iTunes or Spotify, please leave us a 5-star comment, and then that will spread the word. And I think that a lot of kids going through this stuff, and a lot of parents going through this stuff, and then many of people, maybe all you were watching this, wanted to become a judge, and then probably a good episode to listen and then spread the word. So that helps me and it helps the world. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys Friday, bi-weekly. Peace out. Thank you so much.